In a significant escalation of ongoing military operations, the United States and Israel have jointly deployed advanced F-15 fighter jets for a series of precision airstrikes targeting Hamas installations within the Gaza Strip. The coordinated operation marks a deepening military collaboration between the two nations amid rising tensions in the region, following a surge in hostilities between Israeli Defense Forces and Hamas militants. According to defense officials, the decision to engage F-15 aircraft was made after intelligence reports indicated the presence of high-value Hamas command centers, weapons depots, and tunnel networks embedded in densely populated urban areas of Gaza. These targets, considered central to Hamas's operational infrastructure, were deemed difficult to neutralize through conventional artillery or drone strikes without risking significant civilian casualties. The use of F-15 fighter jets, renowned for their precision strike capability, speed, and maneuverability, was seen as a strategic move to minimize collateral damage while maximizing tactical effectiveness. The F-15 jets, flown by elite squadrons of the Israeli Air Force and supported by U.S. Air Force units stationed in the region, launched in coordinated waves during the early morning hours. Their approach involved low-altitude flights to evade radar detection, followed by rapid ascent and release of guided munitions designed to penetrate hardened targets. Reports from the ground confirm a series of loud explosions across northern and central Gaza, with plumes of smoke visible for miles. Initial assessments suggest that several key Hamas infrastructure points were successfully hit, including underground tunnels used for smuggling weapons, a communications center, and a weapons manufacturing facility believed to be producing short-range rockets. Pentagon sources confirmed that the U.S. played a supportive but active role in the operation, providing intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance (ISR) data gathered from satellite imagery and unmanned aerial systems. The U.S. Air Force also contributed electronic warfare support to jam enemy communications and radar systems during the strikes, ensuring that pilots could operate with greater impunity. While no U.S. aircraft directly engaged in kinetic actions over Gaza, their role in the operation was described as critical and integrated, underscoring the high level of interoperability between the two allied militaries. The operation was reportedly greenlit after a series of high-level discussions between Israeli Prime Minister and U.S. defense officials, including the Secretary of Defense and National Security Council representatives. Both sides emphasized the importance of precision and restraint, acknowledging the humanitarian crisis already unfolding in Gaza due to weeks of conflict. Still, they maintained that Hamas's continued rocket attacks on civilian population centers in southern and central Israel warranted decisive action. In the days leading up to the strikes, Hamas had launched over 200 rockets, including several aimed at Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, prompting red alerts and sending thousands of civilians into shelters. In a televised statement, an Israeli Defense Forces spokesperson reiterated that the operation was aimed solely at neutralizing Hamas's military capability and not at harming Palestinian civilians. He emphasized that leaflets, text messages, and pre-strike warnings had been issued in areas close to the intended targets to allow civilians to evacuate. Nevertheless, human rights organizations and medical personnel in Gaza reported casualties, including injuries to civilians caught near the strike zones. Hospital officials in Gaza claimed that the health infrastructure, already stretched thin, is struggling to cope with the influx of wounded following the latest round of airstrikes. International reaction to the joint operation has been mixed. The United Nations called for restraint and urged both sides to return to the negotiating table, warning that continued escalation could lead to a full-scale regional war. European Union officials expressed concern over the civilian toll while acknowledging Israel's right to defend itself against indiscriminate rocket fire. In the United States, congressional response was sharply divided along partisan lines. Several lawmakers hailed the operation as a justified response to terrorism, while others raised alarm over potential civilian harm and the long-term implications for peace in the Middle East. Meanwhile, Hamas issued a defiant statement through its official channels, vowing retaliation and claiming that several of its fighters had survived the strikes. The militant group accused Israel and the U.S. of waging a war against the Palestinian people and called on allied groups in the region to rise in solidarity. Rocket fire resumed from the Gaza Strip shortly after the strikes, with several missiles intercepted by Israel's Iron Dome defense system. Some, however, reached their targets, causing minor injuries and damage to civilian infrastructure in Israeli towns bordering Gaza. The deployment of F-15 fighter jets in such a volatile theater underscores the seriousness of the current conflict and the risks both sides are willing to undertake. Defense analysts note that the F-15's use signals a turning point in the conflict, as both Israel and the United States demonstrate their willingness to use high-value assets in a campaign designed to degrade Hamas's strategic depth. For Israel, it is a show of military superiority and resolve. For the United States, it reflects a continued commitment to regional security partnerships and counterterrorism. As the dust settles over Gaza, the world watches closely. The question remains whether this latest wave of strikes will achieve its intended goal of reducing Hamas's capability or instead further inflame a cycle of violence that has plagued the region for decades. Both Israeli and American officials have maintained that further operations remain on the table should Hamas continue its attacks, leaving the door open for additional airstrikes in the near future. For now, the skies over Gaza remain tense, and the people on both sides of the border brace for what comes next. The precision, coordination, and force of the recent F-15 strikes have sent a clear message, but whether it leads to de-escalation or further conflict is yet to be seen.